This week I received an email from a follower who said she wanted to see a video led by me. She also suggested that we talk about feminism, activism, and sexism in Spain. Also, in my own flamenco tours, I get people asking about, the really famous Spanish macho culture. So today we're answering those questions. What it's like to be a woman living in and visiting Spain. So venga, let's go! Hey Spain lovers, welcome to Spain Revealed. I'm Yolanda Martin.
And I'm James Blick, and this channel's all about helping you explore and experience Spain like a local. So this email dropped into Yoly's email, and I figured, well, this is a great opportunity, right? I can't give a perspective on that, so first chance for Yoly to lead a video. But it did make me realize that often people ask, why, Yoly, don't you lead more videos? So I thought it'd be a good chance to address that question. So Yoly, and I don't want this to look like a hostage video, Yoly, why do you not lead more videos?
Well, mainly because I don't want to, but also I'm very comfortable with the idea of being a guest star.
But today it's going to be a little more uncomfortable because you're gonna lead the show here.
Yep.
So 40% of the people who watch this channel are women. Today the format is I'm going to ask the questions and Yoly's going to give the answers. And we put out a call on Instagram yesterday asking for your questions of what you would like me to ask Yoly. So we've worked some of those into the questions that we're going to ask. Should we kick it off?
Yes.
You ready?
Yeah.
Nervous?
A little bit.
Let's do it. I'm excited. So question number one, we're going to start with this word macho because a lot of the questions that came in on Instagram were about the macho culture in Spain. First of all, what does that word even mean, macho, in Spanish?
I mean, macho literally means male, so the opposite of female. Sorry, I'm speaking in binary terms here. And so, yeah, I mean, it's really a very simple word, so in the animal world, there are females and there are males, so hembras and machos. But of course, it's also the root of the word machismo, right? And so, yeah, that is loaded. That is very, very loaded.
Yeah, because when we think of the word macho in English, we automatically sort of think of the macho culture, but in Spanish it has its sort of neutral term, and then the machismo, we would understand that in English.
Of course, machismo, machista, someone that is that has machismo ideas is machista.
It's like sexist. Or,
exactly, sexist.
Okay, so now we got that clear. Kind of question 1.5, does Spain have a macho culture?
Well, I guess like in many countries, Spain has had traditionally men really having the power, being the powerful ones. In Spain also historically, the Catholic Church has had a lot of weight in our culture, and the Catholic Church does promote ideas of, the women are at home, they're taking care of children, and like Virgin Mary, and all of these ideas of like really having the woman with a really submissive role and not very active socially or politically.
And I guess we had a dictatorship until 1975, which was very much joined up with the Catholic Church.
The ideology was a national Catholicism, so that meant that from the regime, all these Catholic ideas were going to be promoted, really. So women couldn't really own maybe a bank account. This is like at the very beginning of the dictatorship. They couldn't travel abroad by themselves. Maybe they couldn't go and buy an apartment just by themselves. And all those things were included in a concept that was the permiso marital.
And what did that mean?
So that meant that the husband was giving the wife permission to do all these things, without which she couldn't do it. So when my parents got married in 1975, my mom actually earned more than my dad. But as a man of his time, he expected the wife to be at home taking care of the children. So my dad said to my mom, "That's my plan," and she was like, "Okay, so I guess I need to stop working." For her to have continued working would have probably meant the divorce.
So how have things changed for women since 1975 right up till today?
Well, I think that on paper we're pretty much equal as men, but there is still a lot of work to be done. Just socially, the ideas that the people have still, there's a lot of men still and women that have macho ideas.
What's it like for people our age and younger who are more modern in a sense? Is there as much machismo amongst the men?
I would say that it's getting better, so not so much machismo. There's more awareness generally, and I think the men are generally trying to be better and more equal, and just be aware that we are the same, we have the same rights. But there is a little bit of fight still to be going on.
Now, one thing that I have learned being here is a terminology called micro-machismo. A micro-machismo is a small act of machismo, which men who might not consider themselves machista, such as myself, we can fall into this trap of doing like little minor sexist things, which, you know, you would even say allowing you to walk first through a door is a micro-machismo.
Yeah, the whole caballerismo idea.
Which is like the gentlemanly behavior.
Yes.
And so I really like the idea of micro-machismo. So help us understand that. What are some examples of micro-machismo that are unique to Spain, maybe?
Maybe a really simple one. You know how we like non-alcoholic beer here in Spain. We drink that a lot. And so if you go to a bar and it's a man and a woman, and someone orders the non-alcoholic beer, the sin, una caña sin, by default, it happens a lot, the waiter is just going to give the non-alcoholic beer to the lady.
Okay.
Assuming a lot of things, even also that, you know, the lady is pregnant, but it can mean and many other things.
It's almost like assuming that the lady is like the weaker sex, can't handle the alcohol.
Of course, you're not drinking alcohol.
What would be another example of a micro-machismo?
Well, there's another one that I actually caught you on. You can talk about it.
This is where I don't remember the specific cases, which may be a micro-machismo in and of itself. Yoly does. Whereby I have said, this is in the past, I've learned since then, is let me help you in the house. Or maybe it was about a specific thing, like let me help, you know, tidy up.
Yeah, or maybe talking to friends and you would say, oh, but I helped Yoly in the house.
Okay, yeah, no, that's a better example.
Yeah.
And so that is like a micro-machismo because it's stating this concept that you are to be helped, that you're in charge of the house, that I'm there to help, rather than we just have both equal responsibilities. So I don't say that anymore, so I've learned. And so that's a good one.
But you help, right?
I help. The other thing you've taught, yeah, exactly. I still help. The other thing that I have learned about is manspreading. Now you can't see, I know this is a big issue, you know, concept around the world. You can't see our legs here, but you've told me about that before. And actually the Madrid Metro created a little campaign around saying that manspreading was banned.
Was not allowed on the Metro,
And they had little, you know,
signs.
And they had little signs showing manspreading. So that's something that in Madrid they've tried to battle. So it's like these little things. I'm sure, I guess in your culture, there's the equivalence of micro-machismos. Sure. So question number 2, and I feel like one about machismo was just a big one there, so we're going to hit off a few shorter ones now. But number 2, catcalling. Somebody asked if as a woman traveling through Spain, should you expect to be catcalled in Spain? Is that something that happens?
I think it does happen. It happens to me, you know, maybe once a month or so in various formats, you know, so it might be just like an old guy, or it might be a young guy, or it might be a group of young people, and maybe one of them says something. It does happen. It has happened to me in many other countries. In New Zealand, it used to happen as well to me.
And I'd be curious to know, you know, if you're watching and you live in Spain, what's your experience of this? Let us know in the comments. Are you, you know, and you're a woman, do you get catcalled? Or you're a man, do you get catcalled? Actually, I was catcalled once.
Yes!
I'd been jogging. This is
I'm not proud of that.
Yeah, I know.
As a woman,
was that a micro-machismo?
Sorry.
We're getting very confused here. But I remember being catcalled. I was stretching after jogging, and I can't remember what these 2 women walking past said, and yeah.
They call you guapo.
They call me guapo.
Remember that?
I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of how that made me feel and things like that, because I have to deal with it a lot less, not at all, compared to you.
Yeah.
All right, so catcalling might happen, but not a huge deal, it sounds like, for you.
No.
Okay. So question number 3, another question that came in, Yoly, was people, and it came from a couple of people that they'd read that Spain had higher rates of domestic or gender violence towards women compared to other countries. Where are we at on that?
I think gender violence is, of course, still a problem. It has gotten better compared to years ago, decades ago.
We did see a graph actually somewhere, and the rates have, the trend is dropping a little bit in terms of women killed by their partners. The trend was dropping, but it's still obviously too high.
So there is way more media attention, I would say, and maybe that helps improve things. So, but still, I mean, there is this idea that Spain has a really macho society, which, you know, we kind of do in some ways. We're looking at some data, and actually gender violence is worse in countries such as Germany, England, or France, worse than in Spain. There are more women killed by their partners in these countries rather than in Spain, which was interesting to read.
It kind of runs a bit contrary to what we would think, given that famous macho culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
Of course, just having one woman killed is already a huge issue, but
of course,
it's good that it's getting better.
So that gender violence question connects to another question that was asked about Vox, and what do you think of Vox? Just to give some context, Vox is an extreme right political party that in our recent elections a week or so ago have gained a lot of seats in Parliament, about 52 seats, and so they've really come out of nowhere. Vox, one of their policies is to say that there's no such thing as gender violence, there's just violence, and so
violence in general.
Exactly, which is a way to kind of pull the rug out of the whole issue,
and
which is the fact that there is violence, but the issue that needs to be dealt with is violence towards women.
Yes, exactly.
So why don't you give us some context or perspective on Vox?
So Vox is considered an anti-feminist party because of ideas such as this. They also talk about feminazis. So instead of being a feminist, you're a feminazi. I don't know how many people have died because of feminists, but it's not Nazism, that's for sure. And yes, they have this idea that, let's not talk about gender violence because that's not a thing. There is just general violence. So they try to also fake the data and just, give wrong information to people by saying that most of the police reports about gender violence are fake. That's usually in the news. Also about abortion laws, what they're trying now to do is to have abortions not funded by the public health system. They say that it's a choice that women make and that should be privately funded.
So we're moving on to question 5, and this is about legal protections for women. So abortion laws, rape laws. We've spoken about abortion. Abortion is legal here in Spain. Okay, and that's the one that Vox is trying to undo. But what about rape laws? There's been a lot of controversy in the last few years about that. So give us some news on that.
Yeah, so because there's been a few really problematic cases. The problem is the law. For it to be rape, there needs to be physical violence or intimidation. And for that to be approved, that there was that violence or that intimidation, sometimes they say that the lady needs to have fought back. Which is not the case in all rapes, but that doesn't mean it wasn't a rape. Sometimes the person might be unconscious. That's a really famous case that just happened a few weeks ago. Or sometimes you just go into a trance, you can't physically respond, you can't you can't fight back. So of course that's a huge problem that is going on right now. So the laws need to be changed.
And so I think they're actually talking about changing the law to remove the need for violence or intimidation to qualify as rape rather than sexual assault.
Yes.
All right, and before we head on to number 6, just off camera now, Yoly said to me, I hope we're not portraying Spain as this kind of horrible place, because inherently, when you talk about things like rape and gender violence, just the mere fact of talking about them can set off alarm bells, I suspect, for people.
Yeah, of course.
So a lot of questions that did come in were about safety and is this a safe country? Why don't we kind of just go down a little bit further into that?
Yeah, okay, great. And repeat that it is a very safe country.
So you've said Spain is a safe country for a woman to travel around solo. I know you've had some experience with women who are traveling on their own through the country. What about going into bars? What are some techniques or things that they can do to kind of meet up with people?
Yeah, sometimes, I get solo travelers and they might say that they do a lot of meetup, for example. Meetup is meetup.com, I think. Yeah. And it's a system that works very well here in Spain, by which people just gather to do activities together. It might be a wine tasting or an art class. Yeah. So
it's quite a nice way to get in on a local level.
Yeah, exactly. You get to meet locals, and you get to you get the company, which is great too.
And I think when you search for meetup, you can see if the language, so you can see if it's an English language meetup. I know there are a lot of English language meetups, and a lot of Spaniards go to those because they speak English and they want to practice their English. And also, if you're concerned about going to the meetup, it's just you and some other person, you can see how many people have RSVP'd, so you can see if it's going to be a group of people. So that's quite a fun way, and they're usually pretty cheap or free. You know, should women who are traveling on their own feel confident walking into a tapas bar and having lunch or dinner or having a drink on their own? Is that something that you do or we do?
Yeah, it's totally fine. You know, like you go, you have a glass of wine, you have have dinner, have lunch by yourself. It's totally fine. I mean, like anywhere else, you know, maybe you have a couple of glasses of wine, you might get a guy chatting you up, but it's like, you know, it's fine. Like, you know, it's no trouble at all.
Okay. Yeah, and I know, you know, in Devour Tours, you know, we get a number of women who are traveling on their own on our tours, and often they've had lunch on their own and they take an evening tour because they're like, I just didn't want to eat on my own again. And so I wanted to have dinner with people. And so it's more just kind of having company while you're traveling alone.
Yeah,
so
if you want it.
Exactly. So meetups is an idea, taking a tour or just walking into a bar and having a drink. Totally fine and totally acceptable.
Yeah.
So question number 7, a couple of people asked about what it's like working in Spain. Is there equality? You know, I know that laws have been passed over the last 10 years or so, which do guarantee equality for women in the workplace and ensure that there's a more equal number of women in political representation. But what's it kind of like, you know, on the ground, in the office?
Well, in the office, on the ground, like in many countries, there is a pay gap. So in Spain, it's about 25%.
Okay, so women earn 25% less than men on average.
Exactly, yes. And then also, I mean, I've heard of a few cases of women actually getting asked in job interviews whether they were planning on being a mother or whether they were married.
I do notice that there's less conversation that feels like sometimes in Spain about what you should or shouldn't do in terms of what other people would call like political correctness. You know, it's even okay in this country, and this is a totally different thing, to comment on people's physical appearance.
All the time.
You will see that a lot. And so I think there's a less guarded attitude in general about what you can say to people, and that will flow into the workplace. You know what I mean? So if you can say, oh my God, you've put on weight, people say that to people. And so people,
my parents.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, and so they're more likely maybe then to say it in the workplace or not kind of feel that barrier quite as much. So I can see how, due to the culture, that could happen.
Good point.
So number 8, somebody also asked about flamenco, Yoly. And this connects a little bit through to the workplace, I guess. You know, what's the experience of women in the flamenco world?
So, I mean, there's plenty of female dancers, that's for sure, way more than men, than male dancers. In the singing, traditionally, way fewer female singers, or they would sing, but not professionally. There was a lot of cases of like really great singers that were not quite allowed to go and sing by themselves because Happy didn't let that happen. So there's a little bit of, well, there was that, but nowadays it's, I would say 50-50. For guitarists, that's something that we need to conquer still. There is way more male guitarists than female guitarists. There is a, you know, it's starting to happen. There is more and more female guitarists, but still not enough. And also in the flamenco lyrics, actually, sometimes traditionally they would be sometimes quite sexist. They would just say, you know, not very nice things about women, or, you know, how you treat me badly, so I beat you, stuff like that. Nowadays, younger singers are choosing not to use those lyrics. Men and women? Men and women, they just choose not to sing those lyrics, which is great.
So number 9, I can't do that with my hands. You know, thinking about New Zealand, you live in Spain now, obviously, and you had lived in New Zealand for 4 years. So somebody asked a question about what your experience of being a woman was like in New Zealand compared to Spain. You did say you were catcalled in New Zealand as well. So more or less, what was it like there?
The thing in New Zealand is that I used to enjoy going for walks, and most of the time it was walks actually by the road. So it was drivers just honking their horns, you know. So maybe it was just they were concerned about my safety.
Probably not. Yeah. But, so different kind of catcalling, because catcalling and maybe Spanish men are a little more, they'll do it to your face.
Yes, exactly.
Whereas the Kiwi men were hiding behind the car.
Yeah, exactly. Just driving away, driving past.
I could see how those two things. What about kind of gender roles for, you know, women and men compared to Spain?
It felt more equal. It felt more equal in terms of, you know,
New Zealand.
In New Zealand, sorry, yes. So, you know, like in household, we would visit like friends, and it all felt a little bit more equal than here in Spain.
So last question, somebody asked, is James, and I'm going to read this one so I get it right, Is James different from Spanish men in regard to doing activities and his attitudes?
Well, I think that you grow up in different states, different values maybe. I don't know, what do you think?
I think just the fact that this country has had was a dictatorship till 1975 with a concept that women had to ask their husband's permission to have a bank account, all these things, that just didn't exist in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So, the swinging 60s and the sexual revolution happened in the 1980s in Spain.
If so.
If it even happened then. So I think in the end, just all of that stuff just means that, someone who's Spanish, your brother, for example, is the same age as me, comes from a very different background and cultural background than I do in New Zealand. So I guess there's going to be differences. But I would say that our male friends are kind of like me. They're aware of micromachismos. They're aware of, you're not helping in the house. You're two people who are a team who are just doing it together,
Exactly.
So I would say that's my perspective. So guys, we make a bunch of videos here in our home where we talk about Spanish culture. And if you want to check more of those out, I'll make sure it's linked below, a playlist where you can see those. Apart from that, we'll see you in the next video. And thanks for watching. Hasta luego and ciao.